So we're on chapter 12. This is the last chapter of this semester, and we're going to talk about disease in the body's immune system. Immune system, a very important thing that we talk about now when we're talking about, things like COVID and vaccines and all these different things and diseases that affect our immune system. Immune system is very, very important. So let's start. Let me go down here. Diseases. So what is a disease? A disease is a condition which interferes with normal functioning of the body. Since the fall of man, the Bible says the curses have brought about sin, and sin has brought about diseases. In the past 2 centuries, God has allowed great strides towards curing and preventing disease, although now again, we're having a lot of problems with pestilence and disease, aren't we? But in the 17th, until the 17th century, anatomy and physiology, they knew about anatomy and physiology, a lot about the human body, but prevention didn't happen till later. And then in the 18th and 19th centuries, the link between microorganisms and disease. Remember, before the 18th century, which is 1700s, no one knew what disease were caused by. A lot of infectious diseases. They didn't know that there were microorganisms and germs. They never couldn't see. They were invisible to them. So that didn't happen until the 18th and 19th century. Microbes are these microorganisms, and they're what we would call germs, right? Back then they called them germs. A pathogen, what is a pathogen? A pathogen is any organism that causes disease. So what kind of pathogens do we have? Let's go up here. So here's some pictures of the immune system here fighting pathogens right here. Pathogens include microscopic bacteria, fungus, protozoans, and viruses, and some macroscopic creatures like parasites and worms, So you think of those things that attack you, you don't always think of worms, but worms being that. So bacteria, fungi, protozoans, virus, and worms. So infections are disease caused by these invading pathogens. There are other factors, so we're going on to what are communicable diseases and are infectious diseases, just like the word communicable here. Infectious diseases are communicable and non-communicable. See that better there? Communicable and non-communicable. So communicable diseases are like colds, flu, tuberculosis, leprosy, sexual transmitted diseases. And then non-communicables, you can't catch them from someone, or like tetanus or gangrene or botulism. So we have infectious. These are all infectious diseases, but some are communicable and some are non-communicable. So going on to the non-infectious diseases, these are diseases that we're not going to catch from someone. And there's a lot of diseases here with the non-infection disease. Degenerative diseases such as heart disease, arteriosclerosis, osteoarthritis, Alzheimer's disease, dementia, macular degeneration. That's just like aging process, right? And then we have the immunological diseases like allergies and hay fever and hives and autoimmune problems and lupus and type 1 diabetes. And then we have congenital and genetic diseases that come from our genes like cystic fibrosis, Down syndrome, and sickle cell anemia. Going on to other kinds of non-infection diseases, we have a bunch more here. We have hormone diseases like diabetes mellitus is a hormone with insulin, Addison's disease, cretinism, and on to our nutritional diseases like vitamin C scurvy, right? Pellagra, rickets, and down into the diseases caused by harmful substances. Diseases caused by overnutrition like obesity and those problems, and then diseases caused by harmful substances like emphysema, cirrhosis of the liver, lead poisoning, asbestos poisoning, and of course, and last we have cancer. So these are how they're classified. So let's look back here. They're classified into infectious and non-infectious, communicable and non-communicable. Another thing that they're classified is acute and chronic. So let's go up here and see here where it says acute and chronic. Acute being severe, and it's acute means it comes on really quick. It lasts for a shorter time usually, and it's really more severe. It's very quick, acute happening. Chronic is something that you've been dealing with for a long time, over a long period of time, something going on. And usually it is not as severe because it's been going on and your body is getting used to it, right? So you have acute and chronic is another way to classify. Okay, I like this part, not like this part, but it's kind of interesting information. Until 1870, 1/3 of the children in the world died from infectious diseases like measles and mumps and whooping cough, diphtheria, typhoid, and scarlet fever. 1/3. In 1900, the life expectancy of a person was only 47 years, 47.3 years, because so many people died in childhood. But now it's risen to over 30 that, to like 87 years. So, which is good, but we still are now, the infant mortality is less, but now we're focusing mostly on disease on the adult population and aging. And so we're going to be focusing as we get older on degenerative diseases, which is aging. So let's go on to the next here. Okay, we're going to talk about autoimmune diseases, but let's talk about the degenerative diseases. Thought maybe there was a list of them here, so let's go here. Genetic disease. Okay, let's go back. I'm sorry, I didn't have this all together. Degenerative diseases. Okay, what are degenerative diseases? That's when the tissue loses the ability to function, and usually it has to do with aging, but not always. Things like heart disease, arteriosclerosis, osteoarthritis, which is arthritis, our joints are deteriorating. Alzheimer's disease, happens in elderly, sometimes not even elderly. Sometimes you can be in your 40s and 30s and get Alzheimer's. And then Parkinson's disease and dementia, basically they're degenerated diseases. They affect the brain as degenerating. And macular degeneration of the eyes, cataracts, and osteoporosis, where the bones turn brittle. These are all important. These are all important to know about degenerative diseases. Kind of have them written here. Kind of move over there. So going on from the degenerative diseases, I'm going to go on to the immunological diseases from the immune system. So here we go. These are the autoimmune. These are some of the autoimmune descriptions and causes. But let's talk about these type of immunological diseases. This is the malfunction of the immune system, that to attack foreigners that coming in. But now our immune system is overreacting. It's overreacting and attacking parts that we don't want it to attack. So the most common immunological disease are allergies. And so allergies, basically you probably have some kind of allergies, to pollen, dust, and sometimes food allergies. And this is where the immune system is overreacting as saying, oh, this is life-threatening, when really it is it's basically just an overreaction. They're sensing it to be that way. So here we have some of the autoimmunes. The other are the selected autoimmunes. Oh, another type of allergy before I go to autoimmune. We have allergies. That's when your body's reacting to something, immune systems. You can have a terrible life-threatening allergy to some things, like allergic to a bee sting. And all of a sudden this little bee just stings you, a little tiny sting, but boom, your whole body can go into anaphylactic shock because of a bee sting sometimes. Certain people that are allergic to bee stings. And then there's asthma. And asthma is a type of allergy where the bronchial tubes contract really tight, and they have difficult asthma. A person that has asthma has a difficult exhaling. They can't get their breath out. They can't get their breath out. And they really need inhalers and medication for that. So also asthmatics are, should be exercising a lot so they could try to grow out or get rid of this problem of asthma. And these asthma and allergies are similar because asthma is a type of allergy. So now let's go on to this chart that I'm having in selected autoimmune diseases. Autoimmune table here, and auto means self. And so these are the immune system is attacking the body and to protect the body in some way, attacking itself. So it's like, okay, I'm overreacting on something in my body, and my own immune system is attacking. So here are some. Let's go through a few of these. There's diabetes mellitus, inability to produce insulin. The patient body is unable to regulate sugar. We know that. The cause, the immune system kills insulin. And so when the immune system's killing this insulin, it's produced in the cells of the pancreas, then we have problems of regulating our blood sugar. So our immune system antibodies deactivate the insulin. So diabetes is also not only this is the type diabetes mellitus, but we'll go on to type 1 and type 2. Well, type 1 is a little different. But going to Graves' disease. Graves' disease basically is attacking the thyroid gland, swells and produce too much thyroid hormone, leading to nervousness, weakness, excessive fatigue, insomnia, susceptible to heat, diarrhea, loss of weight, and bulging eyes. That's kind of like we see somebody with bulging eyes, they probably have Graves' disease. And these are the antibodies of the immune system are stimulating the thyroid to produce too much hormone. And then on to lupus. And lupus is a disease of the systemic lupus, or of skin, joints, internal organs become inflamed, causing pain. And it can affect nearly every body system, and it can cause death. I know some women that usually have it. 90% of the victims of lupus are women. And this is where the immune system is widespread attacked on the tissues in the body. On to multiple sclerosis. Multiple sclerosis is the gradual deterioration in the muscle strength. And that person has MS, they call it MS, and they don't have very good coordination or sensory perception. And the immune system damages the myelin sheaths of the motor neurons. So it affects your neurons, leaving them vulnerable to short circuits. So your immune system is attacking those fatty sheaths of your neurons. So it's actually neurological disease. Onto myasthenia gravis is where the muscle cells gradually lose the ability to receive impulses from motor neurons. So in those cases, the immune system is attacking the muscles, parts of the muscles, and destroying their ability. So you have myasthenia gravis. So psoriasis right here are red patchy areas of the skin. So your body is reacting there and parts of your skin overproducing these skin cells and causing big bunch of skin cells to peel off in large flake psoriasis. And this is because the immune cell system is activated against the skin proteins, triggering rapid skin production. Rheumatoid arthritis is when you see that joints become very inflamed, and it can happen pretty young in life. Rheumatoid arthritis. We have osteoarthritis that is degenerative later on in life, but rheumatoid, the joints become inflamed, painful, and stiff. And you'll see people that have rheumatoid have a hard time in the immune system is attacking their cartilages of, and such, and psoriasis, rheumatoid arthritis, I'm sorry. Okay, let's go on. So those are some autoimmune. Totally different kinds of. And now we're going to go on to genetic diseases and their causes. But before we go on to genetic, let's talk about congenital. What's the word congenital mean? Let's see, we have congenital and genetic diseases. Congenital means con, genus, birth. So it means basically birth defects. We're talking about birth defects. And so some congenital diseases with birth defect, maybe the mother during pregnancy was alcoholic, and so she alcohol Women drinking alcohol or smoking or having bad nutrition can cause problems for the baby in congenital birth defects. So they can cause birth defects. And of course, a mother that has AIDS can transfer it to the baby too, and that's another congenital problem. But then we have genetic disorders, and there's quite a few different types of genetic disorders, and they're inherited just by your genes. So let's talk about a few of these here. So another table here for you to do. So the first is this, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. I just call this Lou Gehrig's disease, and I've known people that were young in their 20s, and some older people too that had Lou Gehrig's disease. It's a terrible disease. One of my friend's brothers, actually he was a close friend, he died pretty young with Lou Gehrig's. We know a few people have had it. Lou Gehrig was a baseball player, and he got this terrible disease. And so this disease is difficulty in moving and speaking and swallowing and breathing. Pretty soon they can't breathe, and usually they get paralysis within 5 years, and then they can die in about 5 years. So, and it says basically here it's unknown, but we know it's genetic. So going on to the next, which would be cystic fibrosis. Cystic fibrosis is when you're inherited this with your lungs, and your lungs producing these really gummy type mucus. And this gummy type mucus can clog up your lungs. It used to be almost fatal, but now they have some things that can help a person with cystic fibrosis live a better life. Sometimes I've seen people with cystic fibrosis have to get lung transplants. The next here, Down syndrome. I'm sure you've heard of Down syndrome. Down syndrome is with the chromosome 21. The child is born with 3 copies instead of just 2 copies of the chromosome 21. And there's a widespread impairment. You've seen someone you call a mongoloid or something, but with Down syndrome, they have a certain look with Down syndrome, but that's caused by genetics. The next down here is muscular dystrophy, Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, and that's when the muscles die, causing the muscles to weaken and atrophy and have to be replaced by fatty tissue. So basically, your muscles are just totally deteriorating, and this is a terrible disease too, because usually a person that has this would die by the age of 20. Hemophilia, we talk about hemophilia, another very genetically transmitted disease. And that's when the patient's blood won't clot because we're missing some clotting factors genetically. Some of the clotting factors are factor VIII. I know quite a few. I know some hemophiliacs that have to get factor VIII from blood. Factor VIII, factor IX, or factor XI, but usually factor VIII. So that's a genetic. And then we have PKU, phenylketonuria, and that basically PKA is a breakdown of the amino acids are not breaking down right into phenolin, and they can cause brain damage. And of course, at the bottom we have sickle cell anemia. That's another inherited disease with our hemoglobin crystallized. Your blood cells are turning into these weird little crystals, and they can't get oxygenated, and so they become very brittle, and they have severe internal clotting. Of course, a person could die. A lot of African Americans have sickle cell anemia that's been inherited. So those things. So that's going on to the diseases. We're going to go on to the hormonal diseases, and then on to nutrition. Okay. So let's go on here. I'm going to go quick. So going over all these diseases, that's pretty overwhelming. Okay, these are going to be deficiency nutritional diseases. But let's before that go to the hormones. What kind of hormonal diseases do we have? We have it written up here? No, nope. Okay, hormonal diseases. When you talk about diseases of the hormones, you think of malfunctions in the endocrine system, like diabetes mellitus, as a shortage of insulin. So it's also autoimmune, but it's also hormonal too, because insulin is a hormone. And then Addison's disease is hormones of the adrenal gland, and cretinism are hormones of the thyroid gland. And cretinism is usually with newborns, so they don't really live that long with cretinism. And Addison's, we went over that with the adrenal glands. So we're going to talk about nutrition. Nutritional diseases are lack in vitamins and minerals, such malnutrition. So, and we have deficiencies in our body, sometimes inherited deficiencies, sometimes due to nutrition. So let's go through some of these. We have anemia. So anemia is when the red blood cells can't carry oxygen because they're lacking the proper hemoglobin, which is usually deficient in iron, copper, usually iron. Iron deficiency is number one, and then copper or vitamin B6 too. And then some people get these big goiters in their neck, this abnormal swelling in their thyroid gland because they don't have enough iodine. And then kwashiorkor is the stunted growth and ulcerated skin and susceptibility to disease can cause mental retardation. And it's because you're missing a certain protein. You don't have it ever when in childhood. This is usually with underdeveloped nations. They don't get enough protein, and so you can get that. And then vitamin A deficiency can cause you to have night blindness. And then to vitamin D or calcium, we need those for our bones. So osteomalacia could be basically a deficiency of calcium. So pellagra is the deficiency of vitamin B6. And pellagra you can have diarrhea, soreness of the mouth and tongue, headache, irritability, skin disorders, and depression and mental disturbances because you don't have enough vitamins, vitamin B6. Pernicious anemia. That actually, I have an aunt that died of pernicious anemia back in actually she was a sister of my grandmother, but she had basically getting numbness in her fingers and toes and loss of weight, sore tongue, weakness, and mental and nervous disorder. And the red cells are few, but they're abnormal, and it's because of vitamin B12. Usually people would have to get vitamin B12 shots. So poor blood coagulation, where the blood's not clotting well, it's vitamin K. You need vitamin K. On to rickets. Rickets are calcium, not calcium, but vitamin D. So a baby that's not getting out in the sun, because sunlight gives us vitamin D in childhood. And rickets can be the skeleton characterized by fragile bones and your skeleton's malformed. And then of course, a very famous one is vitamin C. Back in the day when a lot of sailors went out to sea, way back, we're talking about, 1800, before 1800, and they were explorers and they were going out to sea for long periods of time. They would bring, they'd bring bread and meat, but they wouldn't bring any fruit, or they didn't have enough vitamin C. So a lot of them would die at sea, but not of the sea, and not of problems at sea, but of scurvy. And scurvy, as those gave them swollen, painful joints, spongy gums, loose teeth, delayed healing, bleeding mucous membranes, and general fatigue. So a lot of them come back and they were just totally sick or dead because they didn't have enough vitamin C. But they didn't know until later on that they needed to basically bring some things with vitamin C, whether it be fruits and vegetables, even potatoes have enough vitamin C, but they weren't doing that back then. Scurvy is a lack of vitamin C. Xerophthalma or optimal, actually, I can't say that word, so you can say it. Xerophthalma is a cornea of the eye dries out and becomes opaque and causes blindness, and that can happen with severe shortage of vitamin A shortages. Okay, let's go on here. I might have to stop here, but maybe not. We're going to talk about cancer. So there's diseases caused by harmful substances. What kind of harmful substances? Well, a lot of them do produce cancer. So let's talk about harmful substances like smoking causes emphysema and chronic bronchitis and cancer. Smoking, alcohol causes cirrhosis of the liver and nutritional diseases, maybe even cancer. They're not sure about that. And then drugs, non-medical drugs, drug overdose of liver failures and Parkinson's disease from drugs. Asbestos. Asbestos was a problem back when, and asbestos causing lung disease that can lead to cancer too. So let's talk about cancer. So see if I can get through this. I will try. So cancer, or when the cells have gone awry, they've just gone crazy. Cancer are crazy cells. And cancer are the second leading cause of death in the United States. It's the runaway growth of the body's own cells. And there's hundreds of diseases that are of cancer, types of cancer. Most people that get cancer are over 50 years old, but cancer can attack children too, we know that. It has to do with mutations in the DNA. The cell does not self-destruct, it reproduces uncontrollable. So you have these cells, they're mutated cells, and they keep producing, and they're just cells that are taking over in a tumor-like fashion. They have tumors. A tumor is a mass of cells that are developing, and a tumor can be benign, that means non-cancerous, which means they're not going to spread from that spot, or malignant. They're allowed to leave the tumor and spread. And if they're malignant, you're said to have cancer. If you're benign, you say you don't have cancer. So metastatic is malignant, and that's where basically metastatic means that the cancer can transfer itself to other parts of your body and maybe all over your body. So that's a terrible thing. So here's a picture here. Here's the genetically altered cell where the cancer is coming right here. You have the blood vessels going, and here's the skin cancer developing. And so here we're having a tumor. This little cell here now produces a tumor with all of these cancer cells just going crazy, and you have a tumor cell with mutations, more mutations of the genes. And then going on, this from the tumor, you have the growing tumor here. You have this malignant cell here now. Because it's getting close to the blood vessel there too. So the tumor continues to grow, and further mutations occur, and the breakdown of the last of the cell's inhibition mechanisms here. And so a tumor is now just said to be malignant or cancerous. So let's go up here, see this last stage here. So now we have some of the malignant cells lodge in other parts of the body and grow into secondary tumor. So here we have malignant. See how it goes here? As a malignant tumor, some cells escape into the bloodstream, and they're transferred in the lymph system, and they're transferred to other places, and then they produce another tumor. That's cancer. So the causes of cancer, let's see, go on to the next here, see if, these are danger signals, okay? Carcinogens are causes of cancer. Anyway, we're talking about cancer. So when we talk about cancer, we can talk about carcinogens that cause cancer, and there are quite a few. But cancer, now they found out, is greatly inherited. So it is genetic. So if your parents or your grandparents or siblings have had cancer, you have more likely to get it genetically. Also nutrition, especially nutrition of the has to do with your digestive tract. Colon cancer is basically you're not eating enough fruits and vegetables, and have you do not have enough grains and in your body, those kind of things to keep your colon healthy. Smoking and drug abuse. Yes, smoking causes cancer, and drug abuse causes cancer. And there's certain kind of viruses now that cause cancer, and that's 98% of the deaths are those 4 factors. But also we know sunlight, UV light, chronic tissues, basically the cancer there. So I'm getting kind of long here, so let's stop, and I'm going to go on to the rest of cancer in another video.